Hello and welcome to this big exclusive on NDTV. It's now been 1 month since Ukraine's invasion into the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, and we're joined by Igor, Polikha, who's Ukraine's ambassador to India. Thank you very much indeed, Excellency, for joining us. And now tell us, it's now been a whole month since this terrible war. When you look back to a month ago, did you expect it would reach this stage? And how worried are you about what's going on there?
See, looking back sharply 1 month ago, firstly, it was a complete surprise that such a full-fledged war started. Nobody was expecting that this war will be fought with such barbarian methods. See, it looks like a Second World War, when Nazis were destroying towns, villages, hospitals, everything. I'll just give you some very small figures for your kind attention. As of yesterday, 121 dead children, 121 wounds of our hearts that will never heal. Today, unfortunately, the figure is higher, 128.
Children?
Only children. Thousands of civilians were killed by enemy shellings. They lie in the mass graves of Mariupol, Irpin, in the yards of their own homes. It's a very tragic statistics, and nobody knows exact figures of people whose bodies are under the debris of residential buildings. Over 1 crore of Ukrainian citizens became refugees or internally displaced persons.
That's a huge number.
This
1
huge
crore.
number.
That's almost, what, a quarter of your population?
It's quarter of our population. Again, only dry facts. 13 destroyed and 246 shelled hospitals. It's again hundreds of lives. This is the case when even the right of people to get necessary treatment was taken away. I am not talking about many medical persons killed during these shellings. Another very simple fact about the barbarian character of this war. 291 schools were damaged or demolished. It's only the tip of the iceberg. Just imagine our predicament and our tragedy, not as ambassador, but as of human being. We are afraid of any night call that something could have happened to our relatives. They are spending a big share of their time in some bomb shelters, in some cellars, hiding when the air alert is announced. I know several people who were already killed.
Your own
Not my
acquaintances? Or
acquaintances.
But I did want to ask you about that, about your own family. Where are they at the moment, and are they safe?
My daughter is in Kiev, in the capital of Ukraine. Several weeks back, she came under shelling, just 200 meters. And it took me 2 days to find her. She was in complete shock. We have a lot of relatives in eastern and northern areas of Ukraine. Some of them who live in private houses, their house was destroyed Again, they are shelling a lot of time. They are spending a lot of time hiding from shellings. That's why not only me, my wife, people from my embassy, as I mentioned, we are afraid of any call. And we are starting every morning checking and rechecking how our family members, how our dearest friends, what's happened to them, what is their psychological mood, and so on and so on. It's really incredible mental strain for all of us, for all members of my embassy, for all my staff, for many people from Ukrainian diaspora who are residing in India. Their situation is the same, afraid of telephone calls, trying to check, to recheck what's happened to their relatives. It's just general picture.
No, I can understand. I mean, or rather, I can't even imagine the kind of strain that you're going through, and one can see the emotion on your face. But give us a sense of where you think this war is going, because the initial assumption was, or at least the Russian assumption was, that they'll walk in and about in a week or so, Ukraine will fall.
Well,
but instead, it's turned out to be actually much tougher for them, and it's turning out to become a bitter, bloody, prolonged conflict.
Russians were sure that the war will end just in several days. Just look at their strategic plans. The war started on Thursday. They were quite hopeful. Then, before weekend, during Tuesday and Friday, the big share, eastern and southern part of Ukrainian territory will be under their control. And then Saturday, Sunday, they were hopeful that the western part of their territory will also be basically under their control, just 4 days. And when European Union, Americans, what Russians were hopeful, that when European Union and Americans started elaborating some sanctions, the war is over, Russia is complete winner, and they can dictate terms to everyone.
Yes.
But this didn't happen. Just imagine, Russian officials are not announcing their military casualties.
That's right. I wanted to ask you about that actually, because the numbers are mostly coming from the Ukraine government. Now, according to numbers you put out, you're saying close to 15,600 Russian army personnel are dead, about 101 aircraft, 124 helicopters, 507 tanks of Russia have been destroyed. Russia only released numbers in early March saying 500 dead. After that, we've not been able to find any numbers about how many soldiers are killed.
The most conservative estimates, more than 10,000 soldiers.
That's a huge number.
It's a huge number.
But give us a sense of how this has been possible, because if you look at it on paper, right, Russian army, I mean, one estimate is that they have 800,000, 8 lakh troops to something like 200,000 for the Ukrainian side. So that's 4 times as many. But it's not been easy for them. One of the things I wanted to ask you is how much of that also has to do with the way that your own president, President Zelensky, has become a kind of rallying point, because one sees him every day, he's out there, you know, he's not left, he's very much there. Has that been a factor?
It's one
in galvanizing the...
It's one of the key factors that Russians were not expecting, that President Zelensky will become the rallying point. There is a very cynical joke, not only in Ukraine, in many countries. You know the background of our president. He was comedian, he was clown, but after the start of war, a lot of mass media everywhere started saying that the war in Ukraine showed that comedian has become political leader. But unfortunately, many political leaders have become comedians.
Wait, tell me, because you've seen him from much earlier and you watched his political journey, did you think that he had this in him?
What?
Did you believe that he had this in him, what we are seeing now of President Zelensky, that he's standing his ground, he's speaking every night to the people? Did you think that he had that capacity or capability?
Very few people, very few political leaders
Yes.
have extensive reserve of internal strengths. Zelensky is one of these cases. And sometimes you never know when this internal strength will come up.
Right.
Very small percentage of people
Yes.
is ready to show everything, to show all their internal strengths
Yes.
under extreme circumstances.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Zelensky is the case. Again, about this war, a lot of miscalculations of Russian command, of Russian propaganda. Top leadership of Russia was sure that everything will end in a few days.
Right, and that hasn't happened.
According to their propaganda, they were told that at every corner, Russian army will be welcomed with flowers. Everywhere there will be Swagatam Samiti. But you see, situation is absolutely...
Swagatam Samit. But let me ask you this, because you are seeing all of this devastation sitting here in India, as you said, anxious about your family and friends. But India's own role is something that you've commented very strongly about, because at the beginning of the war, you said you were deeply disappointed with the position India took. They weren't coming out openly in support of Ukraine. 1 month later, do you still feel that? Do you still feel deeply disappointed? Or how would you describe?
I appreciate
Yes.
the latest announcements and latest steps by the Indian government. For example, yesterday's voting in UN Security Council on the so-called humanitarian resolution posted by Russia. Just imagine, two absolutely incompatible words. Humanitarian resolution, which was placed by Russia, that India was together with 12 more UN Security Council members, which abstained. Russia had only one supporter. During the voting, it was China. It's one thing. Another, I appreciate the recent statement, the last statement of your minister, Jaishankar, that Indian principal position is based on UN Charter, on law-based world, and the principle of territorial sovereignty and territorial integrity. Another issue.
Yes.
We welcome the announcement of your honorable minister that apart from approximately 19 tons of humanitarian aid, basically medicals, India is going to continue humanitarian assistance to Ukraine. We consider India as one of the world pharmaceutical giants with huge capacity to help people in this field.
Okay, so you're saying that these are some steps which you're welcoming, but India has still yet to come out and openly condemn the invasion.
See, I am dealing with India from 1985.
Right.
I understand deeply. Many essentials, many cornerstones of Indian foreign policy. You remember the statement of President Biden, recent, about Indian position that it's somewhat shaky balancing. Of course, I am professional Indologist, and I can understand many official and unofficial things.
Right.
But as ambassador, it's my duty to push forward our position. It's the duty of every ambassador.
Of course, to continue to kind of try and
yes,
make your case. But it's not just in terms of diplomatic positions, because India continues to buy Russian oil, which is currently heavily discounted. They're going ahead and doing that.
Again, this issue was mentioned by Minister Jaishankar. He said that apart from all these basic political and other principles, India is not connecting trade and economic cooperation. It was official position, and as ambassador, I cannot comment.
Okay, you're taking a very diplomatic view.
I cannot comment on this position. Each country, of course, has its economic interests.
But would you like to see India taking a more clearer line on this? That would you like to see India coming out and condemning what's happening with the war? Yes.
In this case, I will be the happiest ambassador in the world.
Okay. If what? If what happens?
If position of India is moving more and more, that's Ukraine.
Okay, moving more towards Ukraine. But tell me though, Excellency, because it's not just India, we have seen President Zelensky making these constant appeals to other countries as well, saying you need to get involved, look at what is happening. There is, of course, military aid that's being supplied, other aid, but it's short of that. Is that now a reality to which Ukraine is reconciled, that there will not be NATO intervention, there will not be enforcing the no-fly zone? Because, as everyone knows, the consequences of that can escalate.
It's very difficult to reconcile to many of the things which you mentioned. Ukraine is now fighting alone with one of the biggest and strongest armies of the world. We are really defending the eastern borders of NATO.
Right.
And I think that this heroism of Ukrainian people, of the Ukrainian army, which is fighting alone, of course with the assistance, but fighting alone, one of the strongest armies of the world, should be rewarded more profusely, and the amount of any kind of assistance we are hopeful should increase.
But you do acknowledge that if NATO gets involved, if Americans get involved, then it's World War III, as Joe Biden said.
See, it's very difficult to predict exactly if the third or fourth or whichever world war will start. Of course, in this case, situation is getting more difficult.
Right.
But in any case, we are asking, we are pleading for more support from all our partners, especially from the Western countries, because just once again, I am repeating, we are the only country which is fighting one of the biggest and most aggressive armies of the world. In this case, we are fighting not only for our lives, for our sovereignty, territorial integrity. We are real very effective shield for Europe.
Because we've heard now repeatedly Russia, as the war prolongs and Russia takes heavy casualties, we've heard repeatedly from the Russian side this nuclear threat, the nuclear option is sort of in the air. From your assessment, how serious is Putin, you think, about using the nuclear option?
How can I comment, sitting in New Delhi, what next step Putin may take?
No, just as an analyst, as someone who understands Putin, who understands the way that the Russian mind or the response works.
Srinivasanji, there are dozens of world leaders. There are hundreds of analytical centers everywhere in the world.
Okay.
There are dozens or hundreds of intelligence services. It's up to them to make this
Are you
conclusion.
worried though, as a Ukrainian and as someone, as a citizen of that country, you have friends, are you worried that it may come to that?
You see, we have now, in the world history, only one case when nuclear arms were used, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was a terrible tragedy. Ukraine, in 1986, had Chernobyl.
Right.
Again, with the terrible consequences, any person sober-minded, even any sober-minded person, should be afraid of using of nuclear war.
Yes.
Because its consequences are absolutely unpredictable for everyone, and sometimes for the side which used it the first.
Of course. In conclusion though, Ambassador, where do you now see this war going? How do you see it ending? The one perception is, because of the mismatch, that though you're fighting hard and you're holding off the Russians, at some point they will win. Ukraine will fall.
We are continuing to put up very stiff resistance. For example, today near Berdyansk port, one Russian big ship was destroyed. Our mood, our fighting capacity is still very high. And Putin made unique thing. He absolutely united Ukrainian nation. We are waiting for more military assistance, for more support. But fighting mood of the Ukrainian army, even of many Ukrainian civilians, is much higher than the fighting mood of the Russian army. Because a lot of soldiers, after seeing all these destructions of the houses, some of them start thinking, what we are doing. There is, you understand, there is just war and unjust war. We are on the right side of the history. We are the victim of the aggression. And I also appreciate wide coverage, highly professional coverage of the majority of Indian mass media, who are giving a real picture of what's going on in Ukraine. Dozens of Indian journalists visited Ukraine. They were in various areas. They saw with their own eyes what destructions were caused, what's really going on. It's a tragedy. Of course, we are praying to God that this war should be stopped. We should avoid new civilian casualties. Of course, I am accredited to the land of non-violence. And, for example, I am very much grateful to the granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi, Tara Bhattacharjee, who is arranging tomorrow and there is a widespread appeal, I think from 12 to 1 o'clock,
Right.
peace prayer
Right.
for all religions to stop aggression, to stop the war in Ukraine.
Right.
We are ready to fight. We are ready for direct negotiations.
Right.
Several times our president proposed. We are ready to talk to the people of the whole world
Right.
and showing them what is going on,
Okay.
what are the sufferings.
Right. Fair enough. As you said, you are on the right side of history on this, but we hope that there will be peace soon because it is turning out to be a prolonged conflict. But thank you very much indeed, Excellency, for talking to us. Thanks very much.